All right, whenever you're ready.
Awesome. Welcome to Whole Lot of Holtz. Today we are going to be talking about risk and reward. I think it's probably one of the biggest roadblocks to business and life. I think that's some of our biggest struggles in decision making is risk and reward. With me today we have Emory Eledui. I'm gonna let him introduce himself.
Well, hi everyone. I'm Emory, like Rick said. I've been here at Holtz for about 3.5 years now. I'm the creative director and wear a lot of different hats, kind of like everyone does here at Holtz. And I also roast coffee as my side hustle.
So, what's the name of your side hustle that you're doing right now?
So our business is called Wilson and Claire Coffee Roasters, and that's a play off of my middle name and my wife's middle name, Wilson and Claire.
Very cool. Very cool. Now, how can people find Wilson and Claire?
I'll just go to wilsonandclaire.com or find us on Instagram at Wilson and Claire.
Very cool, very cool. And I've had their coffee; it is amazing. So make sure you get you some coffee. So as we leap into this episode, I was thinking of Emory specifically because he's at his infancy, really, with his business. As he mentioned, he's at the side hustle phase, which is if you're interested in business or family business or starting your own business. This is what I would call like the sweat equity part of it. It's like you're typically working a full-time job. And at least in my past, I'm typically working a full-time job, and then you're coming home. And when you come home, you hug your kids or your wife, and you spend a few minutes with them, and then you're in the garage, or you're in the basement, or you're doing your side hustle. And a lot of times, for me in my past, the side hustle was because the main job didn't pay enough money to meet all the bills, or we just needed a little bit more money to enjoy some of the things that we wanted to do in life. But there comes a point within the side hustle that you really have to make that decision of, okay, am I ready to make the jump to full-time employment as my own business, or I don't know. It can be a tricky situation. I remember when we were first starting off, Colleen and I, if you heard the previous episode, we talked about our laptop business, and we did that as a side hustle. So I was tearing apart these laptops. I was buying laptops on eBay, stripping them down to parts, and then I'd sell the parts on eBay, and it really started to build and grow momentum. At this time, I was doing some programming work for a company here in Huntsville, basic programming. I was no fancy programmer. I mean, I'm talking very basic stuff, probably more database driven. But anyways, I remember the hardest decision was when that business got to the point where it was making just enough money. Actually, it wasn't quite where we needed it to be, but I felt like in my gut, I was like, if I could just quit my daytime job, it would give me that much more time and energy to invest in what I'm doing and let that kind of lead the way. But I think for a lot of people, that's a big leap. That's a leap that a lot of people really struggle to make. For us, at that time we had kids, and the big thing at that time was insurance. Your job carried all your health benefits, and if we quit, it's like, what would happen to our health benefits? And that's what all the family would be like, just talk about and around conversation of family, because you talk about your business. I'm sure you do as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You have a lot of good conversations, and there came a point where I was talking about like, well, I'm ready to take the leap and step out on my own, and everybody's like freaking out. They're like, well, you can't do that. You got a family. What about health insurance? And that was the big thing. And I remember having to be faced with that risk for business. So in Wilson and Claire, what have you felt like have you had any of these risk moments that you've entered into at this point?
I think definitely not probably quite to that same scale yet, because again, like you mentioned, we're kind of in our infancy as far as a business. I think kind of the first one for us was when we started running like all our Facebook ads in about, I think it was May and June, right about the time iOS 14 was rolling out and everything. And so I was kind of like, hey, I've done some ads with Holtz. I'm going to hit this really, really hard with our like email. And we're going to do a big giveaway and everything like that. And so I have to admit, we put a lot of money into ads and didn't really get much sales to show from it. And that, I think, was one of those big risks where it was definitely very humbling because of the fact that I realized, number one, Holtz has such a established customer base that we kind of already have processes that we've established that help us to kind of go along the path of success. And even though coffee on e-commerce, there's some similarities, there's also a lot of differences too.
Sure. Oh yeah.
And so trying to use those exact same techniques didn't quite work out. And so that was I think a big example of us kind of risking something and then really not getting anything back from it,
Right.
and then being a little then gun shy after that of like, ooh man, okay, maybe we should try some other opportunities to generate more revenue.
Yeah, I think that's a driving factor behind taking those risks. Is for me is always the fear, like the fear factor behind it. Like, what happens if I quit my job and it doesn't work out?
Right.
And to be honest with you, when I quit my job, so I finally did take that leap when I was working for that company. I quit my job, and they were so gracious with me because they knew what I was doing on the backside, and they were entrepreneurs as well and business people, and so they were very encouraging. And so I ended up quitting, going out on my own, and I couldn't make it. Like, I was really struggling to make the ends meet. It's like I thought I would work. I worked 10 times more. Like I was burning the midnight oil. I was getting up early. All times of the day. I don't know that I really saw my kids or wife. I was just constantly working because I just wanted to make it work. And I got close, but it just wasn't quite there. So I actually had to go back to my employer, my previous employer, and ask if I could get my job back. And they were so gracious, and they were like, "Listen, like, what if you come back part-time? Come back part-time, use part of our revenue, and then you keep working on what you got going on." That was the best transition for us. I was able to work part-time, and then eventually I was able to transition completely out to full-time and totally on our own.
Yeah.
And that was just very generous of them, and it really helped us succeed. And so that's very much part of our heart too. But with risk, when you take a risk, you have to have an element of, there's got to be something there motivating you. Like if you're going to step out on your own or you want to try a new campaign, you have to have the motivation. And I remember talking to my wife. She often would post a bikini picture at the wintertime on the mirror of her bathroom. Okay. And so it was her motivation that motivated her to stay fit, stay healthy. So she's going to kill me for sharing this, by the way. But it was her motivation to say, hey, I don't need to overindulge during the winter season because I would like to get back into my bikini in the summertime. And so it's that motivation. And same thing with businesses. You've got to have that motivator that keeps you driving. If you don't, it really can affect you. And often failure can affect you. So like you get into this, and like you're talking about Wilson and Claire, like you're going into this and you're hyped, so you have motivation, but then you get hit with the first roadblock and you're like, boom, it sets back. You don't see what you expect, and real quickly your emotions can really play into it. Like you can really start to feel like, oh, did I do something wrong? Did I make a bad decision? And you may have, and that's okay. But you have to, in those moments, you have to really dig deep, and you have to say, okay, we can push through. We can make this work. You have to energize yourself. You have to be your own cheerleader, because nobody else is going to cheerlead you. I'll tell you right now, nobody else is going to cheerlead you. The world will tear you down quicker. It's like, I told you you shouldn't have done that. And it's like, right. Wow, thanks. It's like, that's not what you need to hear in those moments. So you've got to find that thing that keeps you motivated, that you can pull strength from. So go ahead and put your bikini picture up and stay motivated.
I'll get mine up right away.
Don't quit fighting. I think that's another thing, is like sometimes you get those early discouragements, and sometimes, and I've been guilty of this in the past. I'll get hit with something early on and I get discouraged, and I'm just like, I'm done. I'll try something else. And sometimes that's the right decision, and sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's better to stay the course. So don't quit too easily. Life is a fight. Find a window or a hole. If the door closes on your opportunity, or you get faced with a setback, then look for another opportunity. Don't stop looking. Look. You'll find something. Burn the candle at all ends. Like, you don't stop working. I talk to so many young entrepreneurs, and they're wanting to start business or get into business. But then I start talking to them. I'm like, well, so tell me what your day looks like. And they're like, well, I go to work, I come home, and then I go for a 5-mile jog, and then I go and I go down to the the so and so and I have a drink, and then I'm like, well, when do you work? He's like, well, when I find time, I get in and do it. It's like, listen, if you're passionate about what you want to do, you got to knuckle down, and that's what I mean. You got to make it your driving force, and what drives you to do it. You've got to work extremely hard. So burn the candle at all ends. Um, this is one that you have to be careful with when you're looking to take a risk, I think, from personal experience, and that is asking for outside perspective. And this is one where, honestly, most of the time, I do not ask for a lot of outside perspective because, in my history of asking for outside perspectives, you often get people who have very little experience in entrepreneurship, who don't really know what risk taking is about, and so they give you very cautious advice. So you want to make sure you're partnering with people that are also risk takers, that understand risk. And there are different levels of risk taking. There is obviously the risk taking of, where it's very, very calculated, and you can judge it as being a very safe risk. And then you have areas where it's a very risky risk, like it's a high level of risk. And your advisors, you need to be able to trust where they are within that spectrum. Like, so if you know they're moderate, you know that they're not going to be super anxious, but you don't want somebody to sell you fluff and tell you something's great when it's not. And that's the other extreme, where you got the guys who they'll throw it all to the wind. I mean, they're gamblers, they're just going to do it. And those aren't necessarily the guys you want to get advice from either. A lot of time it's somebody that you really trust, that knows you, your character, and what drives you and what motivates you. And that's the person you want to use as a sounding board. And those people are few and far between. So just be careful on taking outside perspective. And if you get outside perspective, be objective about it. Like, really try to think about what they're saying. But at the same time, follow your heart, but also follow common sense. Like, I'm not real big all about following your heart, because your heart is deceptive. It will lead you down some dark paths. So use wisdom as well. And that's kind of goes back to that calculating the risk. Like when I was looking at going out on my own, I'm looking at the numbers, I'm pulling the numbers, I'm seeing, well, we only have to have $80 a day to make it, or $100. Well, I forget what it was back then, but there was an exact dollar amount that I had it figured up to, and I could see what we were making, and I could see the leap was not that far, and so I could rationally take that risk and be like, I can do this, because I knew what I was capable of doing. Anyways, the other thing is failure. Failure is a part of risk taking. There's an opportunity that you're going to fail. You're going to fall on your face. You're going to mess up. I've had some of those this year that have ended miserably and horribly, and it can rock your world, especially if it's a big failure. And in the Holtz family, we have a motto that comes from one of our favorite cartoons. Have you ever seen Meet the Robinsons?
I haven't, and I feel bad because you've recommended it several times.
Meet the Robinsons is a cartoon, and I did some research on the wizard Google, and he told me that that the movie was based on the life of Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs was adopted, and then eventually went on to create these amazing inventions, and it was loosely based on his life, which I thought was pretty interesting. I don't know if that's true, so don't quote me on that. That's what Google told me at one point, because we were watching the movie, and I was like, man, this seems so much like Steve Jobs. I mean, just all these things. And so I Googled it, and sure enough, they say it was loosely related to that. But going back to that movie, there's a part in the movie where he's failing. The boy is trying to create this invention, and he keeps failing over and over, and this family just starts cheering because he failed. And it's like, failure is so important to business. If you don't fail, then you don't learn, and learning is key to business. It's key. Did you learn something from your failure?
Yeah, absolutely.
What did you learn?
Well, I feel like the big thing was managing how much money I'm going to throw at an ad campaign before I'm testing it.
That's a good one.
And maybe like holding back my enthusiasm when I'm like, oh, this is guaranteed to work. These photos I took, they're beautiful. I took them. So of course these are going to be great ad images. I'm the creative director here. So I was like, oh yeah, I know these photos are going to do great. And then turning out where these photos were not converting customers. And if anything, people were commenting on, be like, what is this? It's very abstract, a little more artsy, that kind of thing that I was going for. But yeah, I learned a lot more of like, hey, let's A/B test these like Facebook has set up before I just go in and run with it.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. How did it make you feel when you failed?
Very humbling, especially since doing this all as my own side hustle. It's like there's nobody else to blame other than myself. It's not like, oh yeah, well, our photographer Avery, he didn't do a very good job on this. It's like, no, those are taken by me. Oof.
That's so funny. Yeah, but inside this movie, he talks about failure, and the point of failure is to keep moving forward, and that's the slogan through the movie is keep moving forward. In fact, a little keep moving forward. There's a little song in there, and that is our family motto. So our family motto is it doesn't matter when you fail or how hard you fail. It's just keep moving forward. Keep pressing toward the goal, and you might have to readjust. You might have to, but that's the point of failure. You've learned the lesson. You can move forward in a different direction. This year has been a year of failures for us, and it's just been a very hard year. Last year, COVID was actually not as difficult for us. We were e-commerce, so we saw a really great pop last year. This year, we have been faced with some big things. Like we lost a significant portion of our business because of hats. We buy and use Richardson hats. Well, they had a massive shortage this year, so it totally dried up that arm of business. And then we were immediately hit with iOS 14. Changes within the Facebook and data algorithms that really set us back. So here we are, we're hitting just these massive roadblocks this year, and it really challenged me this year to really think differently. So I've got to this point, and you get to this point in business where when you get hit with multiple hard things, then you're faced with, okay, I really have to self-evaluate here. Do I pull back? Do I push forward? What is the answer? And these are those times where you can get sucked into bad thinking, taking bad advice. Another one that I think that you have to be very careful of is to not be sucked into the vacuum of negativity. You're already experiencing negativity. Don't help yourself by going and reading the news all day. And that's what I started doing. I started immersing myself into the news of the world. And if you're reading the news of the world right now, it is going to destroy your perspective, and it's going to destroy your motivation because you feel like everything is falling apart. What does it matter? And it's like I had to pull myself out of that. Luckily, Colleen, my best friend, my love of my life, she came to me and she's like, you've got to quit and you've got to pull it together. And I realized I was living a defeatist mindset because I had gone through several things, and she said it to me, keep moving forward. Don't stop, push. And it's like I was out praying the other morning, and I was walking across our bridge, and I was looking down at we have a little creek that runs under our bridge. It's a spring creek, so it runs heavy different times of year based on rain. And I had this moment where I was looking at it, and I was just reflecting on where we've been this year. And it's like the times that are good, when there's plenty, there's all this flow going through the bridge, like tons of flow. Water is just running through there. All the water looks fresh and clean, and it's going, and everybody's happy, and it's like, whoa. And then I'm looking down at the bridge right now, and we've not had a ton of rain up there on the mountain recently, so the creek is dry, and there's just a little bitty stream of water now that's running down, and there's just a little flow, and off to the sides there's all this just nasty muck and fungus and just growth of mold that has built up because it's stagnant water. And I was reminded in that moment, it's like, are you going to become stagnant and molded, or are you going to get back, keep moving forward, and get back in the stream and keep pushing? And that's when I was like, we're moving. We're going forward. We're not stopping. I got my motivation back. I got my energy back. I got my excitement back. And now we are going to push and push hard back against the year. We're not going to let the year take over our momentum. We're going to get back in the flow. We're going to find those doors. We're going to find those windows of opportunity, and we're going to keep pushing. So my encouragement to you, Emory, knowing that you're starting out, it's like, yes, you're going to have trouble. You're going to have struggles. Don't give up. Don't quit. Keep pushing. I believe in you.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
Anyway, so my timer here is died. How much time we got there over there, Avery?
We're at 20 minutes.
All right, so I think we're about there. business and family are all about managing risk. I wanted to go into a little bit about family too, because family is very similar to this, but I'm not going to do it because I feel like I'm at my time limit. But you can risk your family too, and so you have to be careful where you're putting your time and what your values are. So we can talk about that maybe the next episode. But thank you, Emory, for joining us today and telling us a little bit about some of your failures. Do you have any success stories you want to talk about? Things that you've seen where it's like, hey, I've really seen some positive ground here.
I think the big one has been kind of building the community through Instagram organically. So as opposed to going through the paid traffic direction of instead just like commenting on people's photos on Instagram and messaging back and forth. And it's been amazing how much that we've seen like people who we've never met from all across the country engage with our very small Instagram following, and then like once we've kind of messaged with them a couple times, like I can see them continue to engage with our content over and over again. And those are all things I didn't pay for. It just took some time where it's like on lunch break I would just be sitting there just like comment on people's stuff, send them messages, follow them, like their photos. And it's amazing how much that you can build a community just through something as simple as that.
Yeah, that's awesome. As that gives you the motivation to keep going.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah, you do need wins. Wins keep you motivated and they keep you going. Losses are hard, but remember, if you face the losses, don't quit. Don't become a stagnant pool of pond scum. Keep moving forward.